Under the red lights of a Manhattan club, she kissed a stranger and signed her name into a tragedy. The music is loud, the room is drowning in velvet, liquor, and betrayal. Arya sees Luca with two women in his lap and something inside her goes cold. Then she turns, finds a man sitting in silence and kisses him like she wants the world to burn. But when Adrian looks back at her, the air changes. He is not surprise, he is consequence. And from that moment on, every glance, every text, every footstep behind her feels like the beginning of a beautiful disaster.
The architecture of public revenge is often deceptively simple. For Arya Bennett, it required a 10-second performance within a crowded New York venue. But in selecting a random stranger for a kiss, she unknowingly initiated a contract with the city's most formidable power broker. Adrian Moretti is a man who operates outside the currency of favors and emotional entanglement. Yet a single kiss from her would recalibrate his entire worldview. Now, with her ex besieging her phone and a staged romance bleeding into reality, Arya stands at the precipice of secrets best left interred. Here begins our deconstruction of this collision. The base at Onyx was a visceral force, a supplementary heartbeat that seemed to pulse through Arya's very bones. She occupied a space near the VIP enclosure, a territory where champagne outvalued her rent, observing the light wash over the crowd in waves of blue, gold, and a deep, arterial red. Under that crimson glow, Luca Vance presented a perfect paradox. Part rock star, part predatory degenerate. He was reclined on a couch, an arm encircling a blonde in a constricting dress, while his other hand navigated the thigh of a brunette murmuring into his ear. Then came that deep, proprietary laugh, the very sound Arya once found captivating, as he tilted his head back, a king surveying his fleeting domain. He remained oblivious to her presence. Arya's knuckles whitened around her glass. For 2 entire minutes, she was suspended between incredulity and a gathering rage, witnessing the man she had invested 8 months in behave as if she were a ghost. Her text from an hour prior asked, "Where are you?" His fabricated alibi. A late client dinner. The blonde's lips met his neck. Luca's hand ascended further, and a fire ignited within Arya's core. This was not grief. This was the pure, unrefined fuel of retribution. She pivoted on her heel, the sharp report of her shoes on the floor, a declaration of intent. The mixologist, a man whose tailored vest suggested effortless competence, acknowledged her arrival at a vacant stool. She set her glass down with force. "Whiskey," she commanded, "neat. And I want something that doesn't broadcast a desperate narrative." A faint smirk touched his lips. "A difficult evening?" "It is about to become one." He measured out a generous portion of amber liquid. She consumed half in a single motion, embracing the burn as a welcome, clarifying pain. Placing the glass down, she exhaled, her thoughts a maelstrom. 8 months. 8 months of shared meals, intimate calls, and a Hamptons getaway he had twice deferred. 8 months she had spent contorting her life to fit his, only to discover she was a secondary character, a placeholder in his narrative. Her gaze returned to the VIP section. Luca was the lead in his own tawdry spectacle. The blonde now settled upon his lap. Arya's jaw set like stone. "Another?" the bartender inquired. She gestured no. "I am on the verge of doing something ill-advised. Recklessness is a house specialty. What are my options? A desperate text, a lamentable karaoke performance. Perhaps a grand public spectacle? I require someone to kiss me." The bartender's polishing motion ceased. "I beg your pardon?" Arya swiveled, surveying the bar's ecosystem, a collection of aspirants, financiers, and heirs. It was a room populated by figures performing either extreme effort or none at all. It was then she noticed him. He was seated 3 stools away, alone. A single hand guarded a glass of clear liquid, likely vodka. He wasn't engaged with a phone or a companion. He was simply present, a locus of profound stillness amid the manufactured chaos. He appeared older, perhaps in his mid-30s, with dark hair, a sculpted jawline, and a suit of divine tailoring. He radiated a quiet authority, an energy that commanded the space without a word. And he looked utterly unimpressed by it all. Arya rose. Adrenaline flooded her system, her heart a frantic, percussive rhythm. She approached him directly, her heels marking a determined cadence, and halted before his stool. He raised his head. His eyes, nearly black in the low light, met hers with an intensity that seemed to draw the very air from her lungs. There was no smile, no reaction, only a silent, unwavering gaze. "I need your assistance," Arya stated, her voice unwavering. His eyes dropped to her whiskey glass, then returned to her face. "I do not offer assistance." "You're unaware of my request." "It is irrelevant." She leaned forward, close enough to discern his cologne, an expensive, understated scent. "I need you to kiss me." For one long second, he remained perfectly still. Then the corner of his mouth lifted slightly, not in a smile, but in private amusement at her audacity. "Why?" "Because the man I was with is over there," she explained, indicating the VIP area. "And I want him to witness my indifference." The man's gaze briefly followed hers, absorbing the entirety of Luca's tableau, before returning to her. "So, this is an act of revenge." "This is a departure." "They are one and the same." "Perhaps." Arya drew herself up, her shoulders squared. "Listen, if you lack interest, just state it. I can find another participant." She began to turn away, but his hand closed around her wrist. The grip wasn't harsh, merely firm, arresting her motion completely. "I did not state a lack of interest." Her gaze fell to his hand, then lifted back to his face. His expression remained a neutral canvas, but his eyes now held a sharp, analytical quality, as if he were calculating the variables. "What is your name?" he asked. "Arya. Arya." He pronounced it slowly, as if testing its weight. Releasing her, he stood. He was immense, easily 6'2", with a powerful build that seemed to compress the space around them. He looked down at her, his face still unreadable. "This is an unwise course of action. Likely. You will come to regret this. That is a distinct possibility." He gave a slight nod, his evaluation of her seemingly complete. His hand then settled on her waist, the pressure a current that shot through her. "Then we had best ensure it is impactful," he murmured. And then his lips were on hers. It was not a gentle act. There was no prelude. He simply took possession of her mouth, his other hand moving to the small of her back, pressing her body firmly against his. Arya gasped, her hands instinctively rising to his chest. For one incandescent moment, the purpose of her action dissolved. Luca ceased to exist. The club and its audience vanished. There was nothing but this stranger, kissing her as if she were the sole occupant of his universe. When he finally withdrew, his dark, inscrutable eyes remained fixed on hers. "Was the objective achieved?" he inquired. Arya blinked, her heart pounding against her ribs. She angled her head just enough to view the VIP area. Luca was standing, his gaze a focused weapon aimed directly at them. The blonde was forgotten on the couch. His attention was locked entirely on Arya and the man whose proximity to her was a flagrant trespass. "Yes," Arya exhaled. "It was." The man stepped away, his hand falling from her waist. He lifted his drink, emptied it in a single motion, and set the glass down. "My best wishes then," he said, and began to depart. "Wait," Arya called after him. He paused, looking back over his shoulder. "What is your name?" He regarded her for a long, quiet moment, as if debating the wisdom of disclosure. At last a single word emerged. "Adrian." Then he was gone. For 10 full seconds, Arya remained motionless, her lips still electric, her mind struggling to process the event. Around her, the club's rhythm was unabated, wholly unaware. The bartender served drinks. A group of women shrieked with laughter. The world continued its rotation, but her own had just been thrown from its axis. "Arya!" She turned. Luca stood 5 feet from her, his expression a mask of fury. His companions were gone. "What in God's name was that?" he demanded. Arya took her whiskey, finished the remaining liquid, and placed the glass down with a soft click. "That," she replied, her tone glacial, "was my exit." "Exit?" Luca's voice fractured. "You just kissed a complete stranger in front of this entire room. And you had 2 women draped over you in VIP, so I would assess our accounts as settled." Luca then began a blustering defense, an attempt to reframe reality. But Arya was no longer an audience. She retrieved her purse from the bar and delivered the verdict. "This is over, Luca. We are finished." He appeared stunned. "You cannot be serious." She met his disbelief with a look of absolute conviction. "I have never been more certain." She moved to leave, but Luca seized her arm, pulling her back. "You're discarding 8 months because of a trivial misunderstanding." Arya wrenched her arm free. "It ceases to be a misunderstanding when your hand is exploring another woman's thigh." He just spoke her name, but she was already emotionally distant. "We are over," she stated, her voice devoid of heat. "No calls, no messages. Do not consider appearing at my home. Simply cease to exist." With that final decree, she departed, navigating the crowd and disappearing into the night. She stood outside, inhaling the air. 8 months, erased in a moment, and the emotion she felt was a profound nullity. No grief, no histrionics, only a vast, empty, and unnervingly placid void. Her phone then vibrated. Luca, predictably. His message was a command. "We must speak." Arya immediately engaged the block function. A voicemail icon appeared. She deleted it unheard. She buried the phone in her purse and began to walk into the night. Indifferent to her destination, seeking only separation from the club, from Luca, from the entire wreckage of her life. But after 3 blocks, a primal awareness surfaced, the cold sensation at her neck that signals observation. She slowed her pace, glancing over her shoulder. The street was largely deserted, save for a couple walking a dog and a man in a dark suit speaking on his phone. She continued on, but the feeling persisted. Arya turned onto a side street, her heels striking the pavement with increasing speed. Another glance back. The man in the suit was still present, now some 20 feet behind her, the phone still pressed to his ear. Her pulse quickened. She took another turn, entering a darker, more desolate street. And then she perceives it. A second rhythm of footfalls, unnervingly steady and encroaching on her space. Arya's hand plunges into her purse, a frantic scramble for her phone. As she retrieves it, her hands trembling while attempting to dial 911, a grip like a vice seizes her wrist. Whirling around, her heart pounding against her ribs, she is confronted by Adrian. "God!" she breathes, pulling her arm away. "You practically scared me to death." He offers no apology, his expression a stoic mask. "Someone is following you?" She can only manage. What? Adrian's eyes shift past her down the street. The man in the suit remains, phone now lowered. The pretense is gone. He is merely observing. Who is that? Arya whispers. No idea, Adrian replies, but he's been on your tail since you left the club. A cold dread crystallizes in her stomach. You can't be serious. Adrian ignores the question, striding past her with an unreadable calm directly toward the man. The suit registers his approach, pivots, and vanishes around the corner. Adrian observes his retreat before turning back to Arya. We need to go, he states, his tone subdued. Go where? Anywhere but here. Arya remains rooted to the spot. Every rational instinct warns her against this, to decline, to flee, to avoid entering a vehicle with a man she hardly knows. Yet the alternative is a dark, deserted street occupied by an unknown stalker. She studies Adrian, who waits, patient yet unyielding. Fine, she concedes at last, but if you're a hidden serial killer, I'll be profoundly irritated. Duly noted. He guides her to the main road where a black sedan sits idling. A driver in his 50s, impeccably dressed, exits to open the rear door. Miss Bennett, he greets with a respectful nod. Arya's eyes widen. How do you know my name? Adrian is already inside the car. Get in. She complies, resigning herself to a night defined by a series of catastrophic choices. The door closes and the vehicle merges into the flow of traffic. The silence within is heavy. Arya stays pressed against her door, Adrian against his, a stark chasm separating them. Urban lights streak past the windows, a blur of neon and gold. So, Arya finally fractures the silence. Are you going to explain what that was about? Adrian's gaze remains fixed outside. Someone was following you. I intervened. Why? Why what? Why did you care? You don't know me. He turns to her then, his dark eyes an inscrutable canvas that nevertheless accelerates her pulse. You asked me to kiss you, he says softly. That made you my concern. My what? Your concern? For the time being, Arya can only stare, utterly bewildered. That is unequivocally the strangest thing anyone has ever said to me. You'll grow accustomed to it. I don't intend to be around long enough to get accustomed to anything. The edge of Adrian's mouth quirks in what might pass for a smile. We shall see. The sedan glides to a stop before a sleek high-rise of steel and glass, an edifice that radiates wealth. The driver opens her door as Adrian exits, glancing back at her. Are you coming? Where are we? My residence. Arya's eyes narrow. No, that's not happening. Do you have a superior strategy? She starts to invent an excuse, then relents. Her own apartment is a 40-minute journey by train. The hour is late, and the image of the man on the street is seared into her mind. This is an awful idea, she murmurs, as was kissing me. You seem to be on a streak tonight. She gives him a sharp look but exits the vehicle. Adrian's apartment is precisely what one would anticipate, yet entirely surprising. It is vast, with panoramic windows overlooking the river, and furnishings so refined they appear to be museum pieces. The silence in the space is almost deafening. Arya stands in the living area, arms folded, as Adrian removes his jacket. The guest room is yours, he indicates, gesturing down a hallway. Second door on the left. I'm not staying. Yes, you are. Excuse me. He faces her, his demeanor calm, but his statement 100% resolute. You were being followed. Until we ascertain by whom and for what reason, you will remain here. You don't have the right to make that decision. I just did, Arya's jaw clenches. You're incredible. I've been called worse. She glares at him, consumed by frustration. Yet beneath the anger lies a different feeling she is reluctant to acknowledge. Fine, she bites out. One night, then I'm gone. Adrian simply nods. One night. He moves past her silently and vanishes down the corridor. Arya is left alone in the immense, quiet apartment, contemplating the nature of the turmoil she has entered. The guest room is as impeccably stark as the rest of the home. White walls, a large bed, and a lone painting likely worth more than her accumulated assets. She sits on the bed's edge, still clad in her party dress, and glances at her phone. 3 missed calls from Luca, 2 voicemails, a series of texts. Arya, speak to me. This is absurd. You are overreacting. Call me. She deletes them all without a second thought. Then she just stares at the empty message screen, uncertain of her next move. An overwhelming impulse to text someone, her closest friend, her mother, arises, a desire for a tether to her normal reality. But what could she possibly convey? Hi, I kissed a stranger to spite my ex, and now I'm in his penthouse because a stalker followed me. How was your Tuesday? She locks the phone, placing it on the nightstand. Outside, the city continues its relentless rhythm. Arya lies back, not bothering with her heels, and stares at the ceiling. Sleep feels a million miles away. When she finally awakens, morning light floods the room. Arya sits up, completely disoriented. Her dress is a mass of wrinkles, her makeup a faint smudge. She goes to the bathroom, splashes cold water on her face, and studies her reflection. Her appearance is that of a battle survivor. Upon her return, Adrian is in the kitchen, leaning against a counter with a coffee mug and his phone. He wears a different suit, a crisp charcoal gray. He appears to have been awake for hours. Morning, he says, without looking up. Morning, Arya rasps, her voice rough. She clears her throat. I need to leave. You need to eat. He gestures to a plate of toast and eggs on the counter. Arya pauses, then takes a seat and picks up a fork. After a moment, she asks, So, are you going to tell me who you are? Adrian sets down his phone. What do you wish to know? We could start with why you have a chauffeur, a penthouse in Tribeca, and why you reacted as if my being stalked last night was completely ordinary. He takes a deliberate sip of coffee. I own a security firm. We manage high-profile clients, stalkers, corporate espionage, threats of that nature. That's remarkably vague. It is also the truth. Arya studies him. And you just chanced to be at that club? I frequent it sometimes. It is quiet. Quiet? That venue is one of the most clamorous in the city. Not if one knowed the proper place to sit. She lowers her fork. You are concealing something. Adrian meets her gaze. His expression an impenetrable wall. That is entirely correct. And why is that? Because you're not prepared for the complete narrative. Not yet. That is hardly reassuring. A faint smile touched his lips. And yet you are still here. Arya opened her mouth for a retort, then closed it. He was right. She had not fled. And while every instinct signaled danger, a part of her was undeniably intrigued. I have to get home, she said, her tone much softer. I need fresh clothes. I need to sort out my life. I will have Marcus drive you. Marcus? My driver. Of course his name is Marcus. Adrian stood, adjusting his cuffs. I have a meeting in an hour. Remain as long as you wish. He walked to the door, then stopped, looking back. Arya! She met his gaze. Do not open the door for anyone, he cautioned. And if Luca appears, you are to call me. A knot of dread formed in her stomach. How did you even? But he had already departed. On the ride back, Marcus drove her to her Brooklyn residence, a small studio in a converted warehouse that Arya had once appreciated for its exposed brick and poor water pressure. Standing before her own door, key in hand, the full gravity of the past 12 hours descended upon her. The apartment was a perfect tableau of the life she had departed that morning. Her mug was in the sink, her laptop was open, the blanket was disheveled on the couch. Everything appeared unchanged, but the sense of sanctuary had completely vanished. Arya let her purse fall and collapsed onto the sofa, pulling the blanket around her. She lay there, disconnected, attempting to reassemble the fragments of her existence. The breakup with Luca, the kiss with a stranger being followed, a night in a penthouse. What was her next move? Her phone vibrated, an unknown number. An intuition prompted her to answer. Hello, it's Adrian. Her heart performed a nervous leap. How did you get this number? I own a security firm, remember? That's unnerving. That's thorough. A brief silence passed between them. Are you home? Yes, why? Good, stay put. I am dispatching someone to change your locks. Arya sat bolt upright. What precisely are you arranging? Superior locks, a significant upgrade. Your current hardware is essentially cosmetic. Adrian, permit me this. A protracted sigh escaped her as she massaged the bridge of her nose. You cannot unilaterally replace the locks on my door. In fact, I can, and I am. This is a profound overstep. This is prudent. His tone was unnervingly placid. You were targeted last night, Arya. Until the motive is clear, your vulnerability is absolute. So, I am to cede all control of my life to you? No. Only allow me to ensure you have a life to lead. The gravity of his delivery silenced her protest. I must depart, Adrian stated. The locksmith Garrett arrives in 20 minutes. Admit no one else. Adrian! But the connection was already severed. Arya regarded her phone, caught in a schism between incandescent rage and an unidentifiable, unsettling feeling. Rising, she moved to the window, her gaze falling to the street below. And there he was, Luca, positioned across the road, hands pocketed, his stare fixed on her building, simply waiting. A sickening chill propagated through her hands. She recoiled from the window, her breathing arrested, yet her gaze remained fixed. Luca was still there, a perfect monument to obsession, his eyes fused to her building as if it were the sole point in his universe. Before conscious thought could form, she was dialing Adrian. He is here, she breathed the moment he answered. Who is where? Luca, directly outside my apartment, just observing. A pause followed, perhaps 2 seconds in duration, that stretched into an eternity. When Adrian's voice returned, it was utterly transformed, low and honed to a razor's edge. Secure your door. Do not, under any circumstances, go outside. I am 10 minutes from your position. Adrian, that is not necessary. 10 minutes, Arya. The line went dead. She remained frozen, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs before moving to the door. She checked the deadbolt and engaged the flimsy chain latch. The locks Adrian had deemed useless. He was likely correct. Returning to the window, she peered through the blinds. Luca was motionless, but now his face was illuminated by the cold luminescence of his phone's screen. Her own phone vibrated. I know you are in there. A knot of ice coalesced in Arya's stomach. She could neither reply nor block the number, merely staring at the text. We must speak. I will not leave until we have. Pushing her phone away, she began to pace the confines of her small apartment, a space suddenly too diminutive for the magnitude of her panic. 12 steps toward the kitchen, 12 steps back. Her thoughts spiraled. Contact the authorities? To report what? That her ex-boyfriend was standing on a public thoroughfare? It was not a criminal act. Unsettling. Profoundly. An exercise in absolute control? Without a doubt, but not illegal. Another vibration. You cannot avoid me indefinitely. Arya's jaw tightened as she seized her phone, her fingers moving with furious speed. We are finished. I made that clear last night. Leave me in peace. The response was instantaneous. You do not mean that. You were overwrought. I understand. This is something we can repair. There is nothing to repair. It is concluded. Cease the theatrics. Come down and discuss this with me like an adult. Her hands began to tremble, assailed by a confluence of pure rage and a fear so potent they became indistinguishable. She composed a reply, then deleted it, composed another, and deleted that as well. Then the harsh blare of her buzzer echoed through the apartment. Arya went rigid, her eyes darting to the intercom. It shrieked again, the sound more prolonged this time, more demanding. She remained immobile. Silence fell. Then her phone began to ring, Luca's name illuminating the screen. She let it go unanswered. It rang and rang and rang. On the fourth attempt, she capitulated. What is it that you want, Luca? I want you to stop behaving like a child and come downstairs so we can converse. I have nothing to communicate to you. Well, I have a great deal to communicate to you. His voice was strained, its affable veneer completely stripped away. You humiliated me last night, Arya, in front of everyone. Do you comprehend the optics of that? Do you comprehend the optics of having 2 other women draped over you? That was inconsequential. I told you I am indifferent to your rationalizations. I witnessed it, and I am done. You are not done. You are having a tantrum over a situation you have grossly misinterpreted. A sharp, broken laugh escaped her. Oh, I understood with perfect clarity. You are a liar and a philanderer, and I will not squander another moment of my time on you. So that is your final word? You are simply walking away? After all I have invested in you? Everything you have? She cut herself off, drawing a ragged breath. Do you know what? Yes, this is it. I am walking away, and if you have not departed, I will be contacting some police. On what grounds? For standing on the street? For harassment? Luca's voice descended into a quiet, menacing register. Do you believe you can just move on? Find some degenerate in a bar and pretend we were never a reality? Arya's heart seized. How I proceed is no longer any of your concern. It becomes my concern when you make a fool of yourself. Who was he, incidentally? Some lowlife you found merely to provoke me. Leave, now. I am remaining right here until you come down and... Arya terminated the call. Her hands were shaking with such violence, she nearly dropped the phone. She placed it screen down on the counter, pressing her palms against the cool surface to steady herself. The buzzer screamed anew. She ignored the grating, incessant sound, then silence. Arya held her breath, listening. Cautiously, she returned to the window and peered down. Luca was still there, but he was now in conversation with a man standing beside a black car that had just pulled up. The rear door of the vehicle swung open, and Adrian emerged. A wave of relief washed over Arya so powerfully she had to grip the windowsill for support. Adrian conveyed something to Luca. The words were inaudible, but Luca's reaction was unmistakable. He took a distinct step back, raising his hands in a gesture of capitulation. Adrian remained perfectly still, a stone figure whose expression was unreadable from 4 stories above. Luca responded, gesturing toward the building. Adrian's head canted slightly. Then he took a single, deliberate step forward. 1 step. It was all that was required. Luca's mouth snapped shut, his jaw tense, his hands falling to his sides. They were locked in this silent confrontation for another moment before Luca abruptly turned and strode away without a backward glance. Adrian watched him depart, then his gaze shot directly upward, locking onto Arya's window. Even at that distance, she felt the sheer intensity of his stare. Her phone buzzed. "Admit me." She did not hesitate. She pressed the intercom button, granting him entry. Adrian was at her door in under a minute. The doors pulled open before his knuckles can make contact with the wood. He is inside in an instant, his gaze performing a swift, tactical assessment of the room before settling on her. "Are you all right?" Arya could only offer a slight nod. "Yes, I am fine." He was entirely unconvinced. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing of substance, just the standard nonsense. That I am being irrational, that we need to resolve this." "He's not going to relent?" "I am aware." Adrian's jaw hardened. He moved past her to the window, scanning the now vacant street below. "How long was he positioned down there?" "Uncertain. 10 minutes, perhaps 15. "And he was inundating your phone?" "It was a declaration, not an inquiry." Arya simply nodded again. "Yes." "And texting without pause." Adrian pivoted, his eyes sharp. "Let me see." After a moment's hesitation, she surrendered her phone. He scrolled through the text messages, his expression darkening with each word. Upon seeing the call log, 12 in total, he looked directly at her. "This is not merely an ex-boyfriend unable to let go," he said, his voice low. "This is an escalation. He is just angered. He will move on." "Do you believe that?" Arya had no response because in her core, she knew it was a profound falsehood. She had never witnessed this aspect of Luca before. The possessiveness was a familiar undercurrent, the need for control a constant shadow. But this was an entirely new tier of darkness. Adrian returned her phone, his tone unequivocal. "You cannot remain here." "What?" "This apartment is not secure. He has your address. He is aware of your patterns. And an individual who would stake out your building for 20 minutes to assert a point is not one who will simply vanish." "So I am expected to dismantle my entire existence," she thought. "For the immediate future, yes." Arya just stared at him, aghast. "You are not being facetious, are you?" 100% serious. "Adrian, I cannot just—" "You can and you will." He produced his own phone, fingers moving across the screen before his gaze locked with hers once more. "Pack an overnight bag, for a few days only. You will be staying with me." "No, absolutely not. This matter is not open for discussion." "It is my life we are discussing. And my objective is to ensure you retain it." His words struck her with the force of a physical blow. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, because beneath the layers of indignation and terror, a small voice acknowledged his truth. "Fine," she conceded at last, "but only for a short time until this situation is resolved." Adrian offered no argument, only a firm, assenting nod. "Secure your belongings. I will remain here." From the recesses of her closet, Arya retrieved a duffel bag, indiscriminately filling it with textiles, denim, shirts, undergarments, athletic shoes. Her movements were a practiced automaton's ballet. a physical ritual designed to obscure the psychological trauma of abandoning her own sanctuary. All of this, a consequence of Luca, the aftershock of a single meaningless kiss. When she emerged, Adrian was positioned at the threshold, his phone affixed to his ear. Indeed, this evening, prepare the West Guest Suite. A brief stillness. No, she will be unaccompanied. Another pause. I will provide the context later. Concluding the call, his focus returned to her. Are you prepared? As I am ever likely to be. They descended via the staircase, avoiding the elevator, a tactical choice by Adrian that Arya, depleted of will, did not contest. Upon reaching the ground floor, he exited first, his gaze sweeping the street in a comprehensive scan before signaling her to proceed. Marcus stood by the vehicle, its rear door agape in anticipation. Arya entered, with Adrian immediately behind her. The lock engaged as the car merged into traffic. In the side mirror's reflection, Arya witnessed her home recede, a cold, dense knot forming in her stomach. This arrangement was merely a temporary state, a matter of a few days. Luca would surely regain his rationality, comprehend the absurdity of his behavior, and ultimately withdraw. Then, her life could resume its normal cadence. Yet a deeper consciousness within her recognized this as a carefully constructed falsehood. Beside her, Adrian was a stoic figure, his attention captured by the blur of urban lights. After several moments of charged silence, his voice cut through the atmosphere. We must establish certain parameters. Arya shifted to face him. Parameters? Under my roof, my protocols are observed. This dictates you do not depart unaccompanied. You do not open any door without my prior authorization, and all contact with Luca is severed. I have already blocked his number. Excellent. Ensure it remains so. She folded her arms across her chest, a clear display of her irritation. Is there anything further? Yes. If any circumstance feels incongruous, you inform me. Immediately. Without hesitation or self-debate, you will simply contact me. Arya observed him, attempting to decipher his expression. He projected absolute composure, as if this were a mundane Tuesday. But his eyes held a different narrative, a sharp, proprietary gleam that bordered on a claim of ownership. Why are you undertaking this? She whispered. Adrian's gaze finally met hers. Undertaking what? This elaborate orchestration, the security, the guest accommodations, the litany of new regulations. You have no real knowledge of me. We shared a single kiss. That one event does not anoint you my personal guardian. He held her gaze for a protracted, silent interval before he responded. Perhaps not, but it still makes me responsible. That is utterly illogical. It is not required to be. The vehicle glided to a stop before his building. Marcus was already opening her door. Adrian disembarked, extending a hand to Arya. She accepted it. A familiar, unsettling electrical current passing between their skin at the point of contact. Inside the penthouse, the atmosphere was as she recalled, immaculate, silent, and exuding immense wealth. Adrian placed her bag in the hallway and addressed her. The West Guest Room. Down the corridor, the final door on the right. It includes an ensuite bathroom. Make it your own. My thanks. He gave a slight nod, his phone already in his hand once more. I have several calls to place. Should you require anything, do not hesitate to ask. Arya watched him proceed down the hall and vanish into his office, leaving her utterly alone in the cavernous, still apartment. She collected her bag and proceeded to the guest room. The space was more expansive than her own apartment, featuring dramatic floor-to-ceiling windows, a king-sized bed dressed in pristine white linens, and a reading alcove with a leather armchair and a bookshelf. Arya let her bag fall and sank into the chair, gazing at the myriad city lights sprawling below. The entire situation was a portrait of madness. Scarcely 24 hours prior, she was in a relationship, organizing her week, living a conventional life. Now she was an occupant in a stranger's penthouse, seeking refuge from a former partner who refused to accept rejection, and drawn into the sphere of a man whose kiss felt like a covenant and whose words implied dominion over the world. Her phone vibrated. A text from an unrecognized number. A dread settled deep in her stomach. You believe he can protect you. He cannot. I will see you very soon, Arya. A chilling sensation coursed through her hands. She rose, her heart beating a frantic rhythm against her ribs, and walked directly to Adrian's office. The door was slightly ajar. She pushed it fully open and entered. Adrian sat at his desk, the phone still pressed to his ear. His head snapped up at her entrance, his entire demeanor shifting from intense concentration to a state of high alert. I have to go, he said curtly, terminating the call. What is the matter? Arya extended her phone in silence. This was just received. He took it, his eyes scanning the message with a fiery intensity, and she saw his jaw tighten. When? Mere seconds ago. He was already standing, phone to his ear. Do not leave this room, Adrian. Remain here. He exited with purpose, his voice a low, severe command. Arya sank into the chair at his desk, her body trembling. Through the open door, she could discern fragments of his conversation. I require a trace on a number. Yes, immediately. I am not concerned with protocol. Procure a location for me. She wrapped her arms around herself, attempting to regulate her breathing. The situation was escalating, gathering momentum like a runaway train with her as an unwilling passenger. Adrian returned moments later, his expression an unreadable mask of stone. It's a disposable phone, untraceable. So, what is our next move? We operate on the assumption that it is Luca, and we interpret this as a formal declaration of hostilities. Do you believe he would actually cause me harm? Adrian's gaze met hers, conveying absolute gravity. I believe he is an unpredictable force, and such forces enact unpredictable measures. A knot of pure dread constricted around Arya's ribs. This is madness. I was simply ending a relationship. This was never the intended outcome. I am aware. Adrian's tone softened by a fraction. But you are now within this dynamic, and I will not permit any harm to come to you. Why? The question escaped her, sharper than she had intended. Why does this concern you so deeply? He did not reply immediately, only regarded her with that same intense, inscrutable expression. Then he delivered his reason. Because you invited me to kiss you, and I accepted. That act makes you my responsibility. I do not belong to you. Not at this moment. The space between them became charged, crackling with an unspoken tension she could not define. She felt a compulsion to move, to disrupt the spell. I am going for some air, she stated. No. Adrian, do not until we have a clear understanding of the situation. She directed a withering glare at him. You cannot confine me in this place. Observe me. They were locked in a silent contest, a direct opposition of wills, until Arya's phone vibrated once more. Both their gazes fell to the screen. The same number, a new message. 1 month. That is the time you are allotted. 1 month to return. After that, matters will become complicated. Adrian took the phone from her, his face a mask of cold fury. He is engaging in psychological warfare. What sort of warfare? The kind that rarely concludes favorably. He locked his gaze with hers. I require your trust. I do not know you. Then begin to know me, but extend your trust regardless. Arya felt the urge to resist, to declare her own agency. Yet the unvarnished reality was that she was terrified, and Adrian represented the sole barrier between her and whatever deranged scenario Luca was orchestrating. Very well, she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. For the present, you have my trust. Adrian gave a single sharp nod. That will suffice. He returned her phone and moved to the window, thrusting his hands into his pockets. Arya watched his silhouette, trying to decipher him. His motivations, his desires, the reason he would extend himself this far for a near stranger. May I ask you some things? She ventured. That is contingent on the question. Why were you at that club? You cited a need for quiet, but that is patently false. You do not strike me as a man who seeks out crowds. Adrian glanced back, a subtle smirk touching his lips. I am not. Then what was your purpose there? He turned completely, leaning against the window frame. I was attending a meeting, a business matter. What category of business? The category I do not discuss. How very convenient. It is none the less the truth. Arya crossed her arms. You have no intention of telling me anything, do you? Not at this time. And for what reason? Because your safety is inversely proportional to your knowledge. That is a profoundly dissatisfying answer. It is the only one you will receive. She wanted to press the issue, to demand a more substantive explanation, but his expression signaled an impasse. It was not going to happen. Fine, she conceded at last. But if I am to be sequestered here, I require an occupation. I cannot simply remain idle and consumed by anxiety all day. A trace of amusement flickered across Adrian's features. You are employed, are you not? What is your profession? Graphic design. I work freelance. Then you will work from here. I require my equipment. My computer is at your apartment. I will dispatch Marcus to retrieve it. And my files, my drawing tablet? Compile a list. He will acquire everything. Arya shook her head, experiencing a strange blend of exasperation and admiration. You genuinely believe you can resolve any issue, don't you? It is not a belief. It is a statement of fact. That sounds like ego. That sounds like experience. To her utter astonishment, a small laugh escaped her lips. You are incredible. I am told that frequently. Adrian's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. I must take this. Make yourself comfortable. The kitchen is stocked. There is wine in the refrigerator. Anything you require. He was gone from the room before she could form a reply, his voice already a low murmur on the call. Arya stood in the staggering silence, once again utterly alone, before moving into the guest room. She began to unpack, attempting to impose a semblance of order on the complete chaos reigning in her mind. But the quiet of the penthouse was oppressive. It was too vast, too still, too profoundly empty. She drew out her phone, her thumb hovering over Luca's messages. They remained like small, undetonated explosives. She read them one last time, her stomach tightening into knots, then began a new message. I do not know what you believe you are accomplishing, but it will not succeed. Leave me alone. We are over. Irrevocably. She sent it before her nerve could fail. The reply was nearly instantaneous. You will reconsider. You always do. Arya's jaw clenched. Her defiance was typed out in a flurry of keystrokes. Not this time, and if you persist, I will file for a restraining order. His reply was instantaneous. Best of luck. You must establish a credible threat, and my only action has been to speak with you. A wave of impotent rage made her want to smash the device. Instead, she placed it face up, a silent sentinel, and moved to the vast window. The city sprawled below, an indifferent constellation of lights. Out in that expanse, Luca was orchestrating his next move, and she was utterly blind to it. A quiet rap on the door startled her from her thoughts. Adrian entered, his face a mask of concern. Are you all right? No, but I'm getting there. He gave a curt nod, accepting the declaration as sufficient. I'm arranging for dinner. Do you have a preference? It doesn't matter. Anything. Does Italian appeal? Fine. He turned to go, but then hesitated. Arya. Yes, you made the correct decision, severing ties with him. It doesn't feel that way. It will. Eventually. He departed, and Arya collapsed onto the bed, her gaze fixed on the ceiling. She willed herself to accept his words, to envision a future where Luca simply ceased to exist and her world righted itself. Yet a core part of her recognized this as a fantasy, for nothing about her situation was conventional. The man in the other room, whose kiss had felt transformative, who had dispatched a locksmith to her apartment, and who now arranged her meal with casual authority, was the very definition of unconventional. The food arrived within the hour. Adrian arranged the dishes on a dining table suited for 20 guests, and a dense, weighty quiet settled between them. Arya hardly touched her pasta, her appetite having vanished completely. Adrian ate with a measured pace, his gaze assessing her periodically. You should eat, he stated. It was a command, not a suggestion. I have no appetite. Eat regardless. Her fork clattered onto the plate. Is this how you always manage people? Only those who neglect their own well-being. I can manage myself. Can you? The inquiry landed with more force than perhaps intended. Arya averted her gaze, a knot tightening in her throat. I once believed I could. After a moment's pause, Adrian responded, You still can. You simply require time. Time to do what? To recall the person you are without him. A sharp heat began to build behind Arya's eyes. She blinked with force, fighting back the tears. I believed I knew who I was. You do, he countered. You are merely in the process of remembering. She studied him then, a true appraisal, and discovered an unexpected quality in his gaze. It was understanding, not pity, but a silent, firm acknowledgement. Thank you, she said, her voice a whisper. Adrian simply inclined his head. Finish your meal. She complied, not from hunger, but from the recognition that he was correct. She was responsible for her own preservation. If that required forcing down pasta she did not desire, then so be it. After the meal, Adrian retreated to his office while Arya took refuge in the guest quarters. She attempted to work, opening her laptop, but her concentration was shattered. Each phone notification sent a jolt through her heart. Every sound from the building, every far-off siren was a new spike of raw anxiety. At around 11, she surrendered and prepared for bed. She completed her nightly routine, pulled on an oversized t-shirt, and slipped beneath the sheets. But sleep remained elusive. She lay awake, staring upward, her mind a maelstrom of chaotic thoughts. A soft knock on the door made her flinch. Yes? Adrian eased the door open. He was still fully dressed, though his jacket was gone and his cuffs were rolled to his forearms. Can't sleep? He inquired. How did you know? Your light is on. Arya drew the covers to her chin. I'm fine. No, you aren't, but that's acceptable. He entered, leaning his entire frame against the door jamb. Do you wish to discuss it? Discuss what? Whatever is preventing you from sleeping. A weary, cynical laugh escaped her. Where would I possibly begin? Wherever you choose. Arya regarded this man, who in less than 48 hours had inverted her entire reality, and felt a perilous shift within her. I'm replaying your words, she confessed, about discovering who I am without Luca. I don't believe I ever knew. I was consumed with being his ideal, and I lost myself completely. Adrian's features softened slightly. Then discover it, no. It isn't that easy. It is. You have merely convinced yourself otherwise. She shook her head. You make everything sound so simple. That is because it often is. It is people who introduce complexity. And you? Are you simple or complex? A slow, knowing smile formed on Adrian's lips. I am whatever the circumstances demand. Arya's pulse quickened. That's not a real answer. It is the only one you will receive tonight. He pushed away from the doorframe and made to exit, but paused. Get some rest, Arya. Tomorrow will be an exceptionally long day. Why? What is happening tomorrow? We are going to resolve the situation with Luca permanently. Before she could formulate a question, he had vanished. Sleep became an impossibility for Arya. For hours, she lay awake as Adrian's words circled her mind. Resolve the situation. Permanently. What could that possibly entail? And why did his calm delivery of the phrase send a peculiar chill through her, a sensation caught between terror and profound relief? As the dawn began to illuminate the city, she abandoned the pretense of rest. She showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, and walked barefoot to the kitchen. Adrian was already present, leaning against a counter with a mug in one hand and his phone in the other. He appeared equally tired, yet he wore his fatigue like a tailored suit. Every detail was precise, perfectly within his command. He glanced up as she entered. Morning. Morning. Arya proceeded directly to some coffee, filled a mug, and leaned against the opposite counter. Are you going to explain what you meant last night? Regarding what? Regarding resolving Luca permanently. Adrian set his phone down. I meant precisely what I said. That is not a sufficient answer. It is the only one you will receive at this time. Arya's jaw clenched. You know, I am growing tired of you determining what I am allowed to know. Then cease asking questions for which you are not prepared to hear the answers. And how would you determine my readiness? Adrian's eyes fixed on hers, sharp and unwavering. Because if I were to tell you everything at this moment, you would walk out that door, and I cannot permit that. You cannot permit me. She broke off, her mug striking the counter with enough force to spill coffee. You do not get to dictate my life, Adrian. Your new locks and luxurious guest rooms mean nothing to me. I am not your responsibility. You became my responsibility when you kissed me. That is illogical. That is the truth. They remained locked in a silent confrontation, the air charged with an almost tangible pressure. Arya's instincts screamed for her to flee, to create distance, to do anything to escape. Yet another, deeper part of her wondered if this was precisely where she was meant to be. A shrill buzz from the intercom shattered the moment. Adrian's demeanor shifted instantly, becoming cold and professional. He pressed the button. Yes? It's Garrett, Mr. Moretti. I have the items from Miss Bennett's residence. Adrian granted him entry, then his gaze returned to Arya. Your laptop and your personal files. I had him retrieve them this morning. She was stunned. You did what? You mentioned you required them, so I sent him. Arya's mouth fell open. How does one even respond to that? Thank you for unlawfully entering my apartment? Or perhaps, stop attempting to manage my life. Before she could decide on a course of action, a knock came at the door. Adrian opened it to reveal a man in his 40s, with graying hair and calloused hands, holding a large box. Good morning, sir. It's all contained in here. The computer, the tablet, the external drive, and the lamp from her desk. You took my lamp? Garrett's gaze shifts from her to Adrian, a mask of pure confusion. You said to acquire anything she might require. I did. Adrian seizes the box, placing it firmly on the counter. My thanks, Garrett. Any anomalies? The residence was pristine, no indication of a forced entry. No one was observing from the shadows. But a flicker of hesitation crosses Garrett's face, his eyes darting between them. There was a vehicle positioned across the street, however, a black sedan with tinted windows. It remained there for the entirety of my time inside. A muscle in Adrian's jaw tightens. License plates? Acquired. Garrett retrieves a folded slip of paper from his pocket and presents it. I've already processed them. They're registered to a rental firm, a corporate account. Under what name? Vance Industries. A chill pervades the room. Arya feels her stomach plummet. Vance Industries is the domain of Luca's family. Adrian shows no surprise, merely offering a slow nod as if confirming a long-held suspicion. Anything further? The driver was a large man, clean-cut, with the bearing of former military. He remained motionless, never so much as flinched, simply sat there watching. I require a photograph. Garrett shakes his head. The windows were too obscured, but I secured the make and model. I will transmit the details to you. Adrian hands him a folded bill of considerable thickness. Excellent work. Maintain observation on her building. If anyone begins to probe, I must be informed instantly. Understood. Garrett gives Arya a nod. Ma'am. And with that, he is gone. Arya is paralyzed, her hands gripping the counter as she struggles to absorb the information. He has my apartment under surveillance. Correct. For what reason? Because he is a psychopath who refuses to release you. But why? Our relationship lasted only 8 months. It's not as if we were approaching marriage or... Her words falter, her breath catching. You believe this extends beyond our separation? Adrian stares intense, boring into hers. I am certain of it. How? Because men in Luca's sphere do not place their ex-girlfriends under surveillance. They do so when they are safeguarding an asset or attempting to recover one. I possess nothing he could conceivably desire. Are you entirely positive of that? For the first time, Arya truly considers the question. She delves deep into her memory, replaying the last 8 months, searching for any detail that could fuel such an obsession. A freelance graphic designer possesses no wealth, no influential connections, no access to anything of consequence until a startling thought pierces her consciousness. "Oh my God," she whispers. Adrian's focus intensifies. "What is it?" 3 months ago, Luca compensated me for some marketing work for Vance Industries. Brochures, presentations, an entire rebranding initiative. I performed the work pro bono. He claimed it was for a new import-export venture they were launching. "Did you retain any backups?" "Naturally, I archive everything. It is all on my external drive." Adrian moves with astonishing speed. He tears open the box Garrett delivered, extracts the hard drive, and connects it to his laptop. His fingers become a blur across the keyboard, navigating through folders, his eyes scanning with a ferocity that makes Arya's own heart accelerate. "This," he states quietly, "these are not marketing materials." Arya moves closer, peering over his shoulder at the monitor. On initial inspection, the files appeared entirely conventional. Sleek designs, corporate lexicon, images of shipping docks and warehouses. But Adrian magnifies a minute corner of one photograph. It depicts a cargo manifest. The numerical data listed upon it did not correspond with the text in the document. "What am I observing?" she asks. "Encrypted information concealed within the image file itself." Adrian opens another file, processing it through a program that fills the screen with lines of code. "You were not merely designing brochures, Arya. You were constructing a facade." Then the revelation strikes with full force. Anyone possessing these files holds proof of every illicit shipment Vance Industries has conducted for the past 6 months. A wave of ice washes over her. Proof of what? Adrian pauses, his fingers still moving as he probes deeper. At last he leans back and meets her gaze. "Money laundering, arms trafficking, and likely worse." He takes a breath. "Your former boyfriend is not just a wealthy heir, Arya. He is operating a criminal empire, and you are in possession of all the evidence on your drive." Arya's knees buckle beneath her. She clutches the back of Adrian's chair to remain standing. "That is impossible. Luca is a narcissist, but he is not a criminal." "Then account for the surveillance team, the menacing text messages. Explain why he is so desperate to reclaim you that he would risk everything." She had no answer. All the fragments were aligning in the most catastrophic way imaginable. "He manipulated me." The words felt like poison. "He was aware I would save the files. He was likely depending on it. And when I ended our relationship, you became a liability." Arya collapses into the other chair, her thoughts in chaos. "What should I do?" "Nothing. I am managing this." "How?" Adrian snaps the laptop closed, his expression hardening. "By making it unequivocally clear to Luca that you are off limits, now and for all time." "And how will you accomplish that?" "The same way I address every other threat, silently and permanently." There was that word again. Permanent, but this time, Arya understood its precise meaning. "You are going to kill him." Adrian's eyes, sharp as broken glass, meet hers. "No, I am going to make him disappear. There is a distinction." "Not a very significant one." "It is, when it is of consequence." He rose, his frame coiled with tension. "Luca is untouchable. His family wields money, influence, and formidable legal power. If he appears on a morgue slab, it will ignite a media firestorm. But if he simply vanishes from everyone's life, flees the country, accepts a plea deal, becomes buried in legal entanglements, no one will investigate further. They will simply proceed." Arya stared at him, her thoughts racing. What are you? A faint smile touched Adrian's lips. Someone who rectifies complicated situations. That is not a response. It is all you will receive. She felt the urge to press him, to demand the full truth, but his gaze was an impenetrable barrier. Not at this moment. Perhaps never. Her phone vibrated. She retrieved it, and her blood turned to ice. Another blocked number. I know he is present, and I know you have it. Return it, and we can negotiate. Retain it, and I will make you regret you ever knew him. Arya's hand trembled as she showed Adrian the phone. His jaw clenched as he read the message. Then he placed the phone down with chilling self-control. He is becoming audacious, Adrian observed, more rapidly than I anticipated. What does that signify? It signifies that our time frame has just been drastically reduced. He produced his own phone and made a call. I require a meeting tonight. No, I am not concerned with your schedule. Arrange it. He disconnected and turned to Arya. Pack an overnight bag. For what purpose? Where are we going? To a location where Luca cannot reach you. Somewhere he would never conceive of searching. Adrian, trust me. With no alternatives remaining, the walls pressing in, and this enigmatic man as her sole protector, she relented. Okay, I trust you. For a fleeting moment, Adrian's expression softened before his composure was restored. Good. Be prepared in 1 hour. He departed, already engaged in another call, his voice low and incisive. Arya stood alone in the vast kitchen, attempting to comprehend how her life had derailed so completely under 72 hours. She went to her room, placed some necessities in a bag, and simply sat, staring at her phone. Luca's threats remained on her screen, like miniature explosives waiting to detonate. She longed to obliterate them, to block his number and feign his non-existence. But Adrian's caution echoed in her mind. Evidence, leverage. He had control over her. She could not delete anything, not yet. 1 hour later, Marcus was waiting by the vehicle. Adrian emerged, clad in dark jeans and a black jacket that made him appear even more formidable than the suit. He took Arya's bag without a word and escorted her out. The journey was conducted in absolute silence. Arya watched the city lights dissolve into streaks as familiar avenues gave way to unknown highways, until they sped over a bridge, leaving Manhattan far behind. She did not ask about their destination or the duration of their stay. She merely sat, utterly numb, trying to avoid contemplating what lay ahead. They drove for more than an hour, the urban glow fading into dense forest, before Marcus veered onto a narrow road that cut through the trees. Finally, they halted before a house. More accurately, it was a fortress. High fences, iron gates, and security cameras were ubiquitous. The gates glided open upon their approach. The house itself was an imposing structure, a massive edifice of stone and glass that seemed taken from an architectural journal. As Arya exited the car, her breath was visible in the cold air as she stared. Where are we? Adrian's voice was subdued. Upstate. It is one of my safe houses. He informed her that its existence was known to none, save for his most trusted circle. And what is the size of that circle? Just 3, he answered, and you are now among them. Inside, a grand foyer led to a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out upon a lake, a sheet of black glass reflecting the moon. Provisions are in the kitchen, Adrian stated. Bedrooms are on the upper level. Select one. I will be in the office. Adrian, wait! He paused and turned. How long will we be staying? His response sent a chill down her spine. As long as necessary. For what? for me to resolve this. And with that he was gone, leaving Arya to be enveloped by the silence of the immense house as the full weight of her circumstances descended upon her. She was a fugitive, concealed from the world. Her entire existence had been mortgaged to a stranger, the last desperate move in a game she was losing. Now she existed as a ward within this gilded prison, awaiting a resolution from a man she hardly knew to a conflict she could not comprehend. Pressing her forehead to the cool glass, her breath created a transient fog. Outside, Luca orchestrated his next assault. Inside, Adrian formulated his own strategy. She was the fulcrum upon which their machinations turned, and it was unclear which of them represented the greater threat. Time became a fluid, indistinct concept. Sleep offered no escape. Hunger held no appeal. Near midnight, she conceded defeat and sought out Adrian. He was in a study down the hall, illuminated only by the cold light of his monitors, surrounded by a topography of scattered files. He spoke without raising his gaze. Restless? Yes. Welcome to the fraternity. Arya moved closer, her gaze absorbing the data on the screens, a fragmented mosaic of ledgers, photographs, and surveillance feeds. Amid the chaos, Luca's image appeared, flanked by men she did not recognize, their faces set like stone, their eyes vacant and lifeless. Who are they? Her voice was a near whisper. Luca's associates, the figures he reports to. The same figures who will pursue you across the globe should this strategy fail? A knot of ice tightened in her stomach. And you intend to stop them? I am constructing a proposition that they will be unable to decline. What sort of proposition? Adrian finally lifted his head, his gaze meeting hers. I am delivering Luca to them. In return, you depart with a clean slate. The very air seemed to evacuate Arya's lungs. You would simply cast him to the wolves? I am providing precisely what they desire. That data drive, and the fool who misplaced it. Luca, she breathed. Luca. She collapsed into the chair opposite him. He will never accept that. He will not have a choice in the matter. But why undertake this for my sake? The question emerged, unshielded and raw. You could have simply disengaged, allowed me to face this. But I did not. Why? A profound silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. He closed the laptop, and for the first time, his focus was entirely on her, his penetrating gaze seeming to excavate her very soul. Because when you kissed me, he began, his voice a low vibration. It was not a performance. You experienced something despite your refusal to acknowledge it. And that reality has been a disorienting force in my mind. Arya's heart faltered. Adrian. I'm not a virtuous man, Arya. I have committed acts that would repel you. My entire world is founded on coercion and raw power. Yet when you approached me in that club, pleading for sanctuary, some internal mechanism fractured within me. Now the act of walking away has become an impossibility. She possessed no words, no counter-argument to a confession of such stark honesty. So she answered in the only way she could. She reached across the desk and joined her lips with his. This was different. It was unhurried and profound. It was not a gambit or a challenge. It was only them, two damaged souls discovering a singular moment of truth within the darkness. When they parted, his hand was tangled in her hair, his forehead pressed against hers. This is ill-advised, he murmured. Likely, you will come to regret this. Perhaps. A faint smile touched his lips. Then we must ensure it is worthwhile. He kissed her once more, this time with an intensity that incinerated all thoughts of Luca. of the peril, of the files, of everything but him. Everything except for the way he held her as if she were the most valuable object in his universe. When they finally broke for air, he drew back, his expression grave. Go to bed, Arya. We face a formidable day tomorrow. What is happening tomorrow? I am meeting with Luca's business partners, and I am terminating this situation permanently. Arya felt the urge to protest, to declare that it was her life being negotiated, but the certainty in his eyes conveyed that it was a battle she would not win. So she offered a simple nod and turned toward the door. Just before leaving, she looked back. Adrian. Yes. Simply, try to remain alive. A corner of his mouth twitched upward. I will make my best effort. She left him there, his solitary strategist, awash in the blue luminescence of his screens, and went upstairs. She lay down on the bed, still dressed, gazing at the ceiling. Tomorrow, Adrian would willingly enter a den of predators. Tomorrow, a pact would be brokered that would either grant her liberty or ratify her demise. Tomorrow would irrevocably alter the board. But tonight, her thoughts were consumed by his kiss, an act that had imbued her with a sense of significance, as if she was worth the gamble. And for the first time in what seemed an eternity, a small ember of hope began to glow within her. Morning arrived too quickly, accompanied by strange sunlight and the scent of brewed coffee. She found Adrian in the kitchen, already clad in a dark suit that projected an aura of menace. He looked up at her entrance. Did you sleep? A little, she lied. You, sufficiently. She poured coffee, her hand trembling slightly. So, what is the strategy? I meet them at 2:00 on neutral ground. I provide the files and they provide your absolution. And Luca, they will manage him. He has become a liability they can no longer tolerate. A nauseating sensation coiled in Arya's stomach. You are delivering him to his own execution. I am delivering him to the consequences of his own choices, he countered. What follows is not my concern. How can you be so dispassionate about this? Adrian placed his cup down, his gaze fixed on hers. Because the moment I lose my composure, people get injured, and I am working relentlessly to ensure you are not among them. His words struck her with physical force. Her own cup rattled against the counter. I don't want you harmed on my account. I will not be. You cannot guarantee that. Observe me. They stood in the charged silence, a universe of unspoken thoughts between them. Finally, Adrian bridged the gap, his hands rising to frame her face. I will resolve this, he whispered. And when it is done, you will reclaim your life. No more dangers, no more observation, no more obsessive ex-boyfriends. You will be liberated, he added, to live as you choose. And you? She inquired. His thumb brushed her cheek. What of me? Will I have you in that life? His entire demeanor softened for an instant. A crack in his armor he immediately resealed. Is that your desire? He questioned, and Arya's response was immediate. Yes. He gave her a long, profound kiss, a promise suspended in uncertainty. When he released her, his expression was entirely professional and gravely serious. Then I am yours, she answered, for as long as you want me. That may be a significant duration, he stated. Good. He stepped back, adjusted his jacket, and retrieved his phone. Remain indoors. Do not grant entry to anyone. Marcus is monitoring the property if you require assistance. Adrian, I will return before sunset. And with that, he was gone. Arya was left alone in the vast house, with only her fear and a fragile hope for company, the sensation of his kiss lingering on her lips. The minutes passed with excruciating slowness. She tried to work to distract her mind, but her thoughts were anchored to Adrian and the perilous meeting he was attending. She paced the floor, marked the clock's every tick, and observed the sun's deliberate arc across the sky. At 3:30, her phone vibrated. An unfamiliar number. Her heart seized. He thinks he can protect you. He is mistaken. By nightfall, you will be reminded of where you belong, and you will come back. They always do. Her hand trembled as she dialed Adrian's number. It went directly to voicemail. She dialed his number once more. Voicemail again. A chilling wave of panic constricted her lungs. She rushed to the window, searching for Marcus, for the vehicle, for any indication of her protection. The driveway was utterly vacant. A second text message appeared. Cease your attempts to call him. He is presently occupied. Another followed. But have no fear, Arya. I will be visiting you very shortly. At that precise instant, the electricity failed. Every light extinguished. The house was plunged into a dense, oppressive blackness. Arya's breath came in short, frantic gasps. She fumbled to activate her phone's flashlight, retreating toward the staircase. She registered a sound from the lower level, the distinct creak of a single floorboard. Someone was inside the house. Her phone fell from her hand, the impact on the hardwood echoing like a gunshot. She froze, every muscle taut, listening intently. Another creak, closer this time, slower, more methodical. Her intruder was no longer concerned with stealth. She recovered her phone, deactivated the light, and moved as silently as possible toward her designated bedroom. Her thoughts were a maelstrom of possibilities. Barricade the entrance, conceal herself, contact the authorities. But she was disoriented, unaware of her location, and Adrian's phone was unreachable. The heavy tread reached the base of the stairs. Arya retreated into the bedroom, closing the door with a quiet click and engaging the lock with trembling fingers. It was a flimsy, ornamental lock, the sort that would offer no resistance to a determined individual. She continued moving backward toward the window, the frantic rhythm of her own heart the only sound she could perceive. Beyond the glass, the lake appeared as a vast expanse of black ink. The descent was too great, and there was no visible means of escape. A text message illuminated her screen. Come now, Arya, let us not be juvenile about this. She remained immobile, utterly paralyzed, pressing herself against the wall beside the window, trying to formulate a plan. The footsteps halted directly outside her door. Then came a knock. 3 swift, sharp raps that sent a tremor through her entire body. I know you are in there. Luca's voice permeated the wood, his tone calm, almost congenial. This game of hiding grows tedious. Open the door. Arya's throat constricted, silencing her. So be it, he exhaled. We will proceed without your cooperation. The door did not merely open, it disintegrated, its lock atomized as wooden shrapnel sprayed into the room. Luca strode through the ruin with an air of absolute ownership. His appearance had shifted. The polished, handsome facade remained, but a profoundly unsettling quality now lived in his eyes. They were feral, utterly detached from reason. There you are, he murmured. My search for you has been exhaustive. Arya's spine met the unyielding glass of the window. How did you locate me? As I have told you, my knowledge is total. He drew nearer, his posture deceptively casual, his expression a placid mask of amity. Did you truly believe Adrian could conceal you from my sight? I have monitored his every action for weeks. Every asset, every bolt hole, every secret he imagines he possesses. A faint smile graced his lips. He is clever, but I am cleverer. You need to leave. I shall, and you will accompany me. That will never happen. Luca's smile vanished. Do not complicate this unnecessarily, Arya. I am here to restore you to your proper place, to mend the damage you have caused. I caused nothing. You did. When you deceived me, when you made me appear the fool. Made you appear the fool? A short, sharp laugh escaped him. I gave you dominion over the world, the finest establishments, access to the influential, a position in my life. And this is how my generosity is repaid? You purloin what is mine. I purloined nothing. You contracted me to produce those designs. I fulfilled my duty. And you retained copies. For what purpose? Because I maintain an archive of my portfolio. It is standard professional protocol. Luca's jaw hardened. Those files are not your property. They are my own, and you will return them. No. He crossed the space with shocking velocity, seizing her arm in 2 strides, his grip so fierce it promised to leave marks. This is not a negotiation. Arya strained against his unyielding hold. Release me. Not until you disclose their location. I do not possess them. Adrian does. A change flickered in Luca's gaze, unadulterated fury, or perhaps a trace of fear. In that event, we shall retrieve them, as a pair. He will end you. No, he will not. Because you will contact him and instruct him to stand down. Acknowledge your grave error. Inform him of your desire to return to me. That is madness. Luca drew her in, his face now a mere handbreadth from hers. Do it, immediately, or I will guarantee Adrian does not survive that meeting. A profound coldness permeated Arya's being. What have you done? What was required? I told you, Arya, my knowledge is absolute. I know his location at this precise moment. I know his associates, and I know exactly how to ensure he never departs that room. You are bluffing. Am I? He produced his phone, displaying the screen, a live video stream. Adrian sat at a table in a warehouse, flanked by men in dark suits. A single phone call is all it takes. One call and a projectile will be delivered to his cerebrum. Arya felt her stability waver. No, I beg you. Then comply with my directive. Call him. Tell him to surrender what is mine. Her hands trembled so violently she could barely grasp her own device. She located Adrian's name, her eyes fixed on it as her thoughts spiraled into chaos. To call him was to lead him into a snare, yet not calling him meant Luca would order his death regardless. She pressed the screen. It rang once, then twice. Arya! Adrian's voice was taut, restrained. What is happening? Her voice broke. She tried once more. Luca is present. He located me. He has me. A brief silence followed. Then, his voice low and lethal, he commanded, Let me speak with him. Luca wrested the phone from her grasp, a cruel smile playing on his features. Adrian, it is a pleasure to finally engage in a direct dialogue. If you harm her, I will entomb you in a pit so deep even your spirit will not find its way out. Brave words from a man currently encircled by my operatives who await any pretext to eliminate you. Luca glanced at the video feed on his own phone. You are at the Pier 7 warehouse conferring with the Volkovs. A bold maneuver, I concede. Foolish but bold. What is your objective, Luca? What is rightfully mine? The designs, the drive, all that Arya absconded with. She absconded with nothing. You gave it to her? That is a subjective interpretation. I want it restored, and I want you removed from the equation, from her life, from this entire situation. Adrian's laugh was like shattering ice. That is not going to transpire. Well then, we appear to have arrived at a stalemate. I will not depart this place without her, and you will not depart that warehouse alive unless I authorize it. You truly believe the Volkovs are your pawns? You are even more foolish than I imagined. Luca's facade of confidence began to fracture. What are you implying? I am implying that this has been an elaborate deception for the past 3 days. You believe I entered this situation unprepared. I possess advantages you are not even aware exist. The moment you attempt that call, you will discover precisely how thoroughly you are outmaneuvered. You are fabricating this. Test me. Luca's grip on the phone tightened. Arya could see the frantic calculations behind his eyes, the first seeds of uncertainty taking root. His gaze shifted from his video feed back to her. Fine, he finally uttered. A new arrangement. I take Arya, you retain the files, and we each go our separate ways. No. She is not a commodity to be bartered. She does not belong to you. And if you believe for a single moment that I will permit you to walk out of here with her, you have completely lost your grip on reality. Luca's face contorted with pure fury. Then what is your strategy, Adrian? Because from my vantage point, you have none. My strategy is elementary. You release her, you depart from here, and perhaps if I'm feeling merciful, I will not inform the Volkovs of the funds you have been skimming from their shipments for the last 6 months. All color vanished from Luca's face. How did you? As I said, I have been preparing, and you have just offered a confession. Luca's jaw was set so rigidly it seemed it might shatter. He thrust the phone back at Arya, his own hand trembling with unbridled rage. This is not concluded. Oh, Arya stated softly. It is. He seized her arm once more with even greater force and began dragging her toward the ruined doorway. We are leaving. Now. Arya attempted to resist, but his strength was superior, her feet dragging fruitlessly on the floor. Let me go. Silence. They were halfway down the staircase when the front door burst inward. Adrian was framed in the opening, his jacket gone, his shirt unfastened, a pistol held with a practiced, steady hand. His expression was placid, almost detached, but his eyes were a conflagration. Release her, Luca. Luca stopped cold, pulling Arya before him as a human barricade. A bullet fired now will pass through her. I am unerring. A fact you would stake your existence on? Adrian's gaze becomes a crucible, forging a connection with Arya. Within it, she sees not terror, but an unnerving, placid certainty that constricts her chest. Arya, his voice, a low instrument of command. Fall. Instinct overrides thought. Her knees give way, her dead weight pulling Luca's equilibrium apart. He falters, his grasp slackening for a critical moment, the only opening Adrian requires. A single surgical shot echoes. Luca cries out, clutching a shattered shoulder as Arya propels herself away, colliding with the hard floor. Adrian closes the distance instantly, displacing the fallen weapon and leveling his own against Luca's temple. I gave you a warning, Adrian articulates, his tone a glacial construct. Her. You do not touch. On his knees, with lifeblood seeping through his fingers, Luca's face is a mask of disbelief. You shot me, you truly shot me. And consider it a mercy that it was all I did. Adrian's focus shifts to Arya. Are you unharmed? She can only manage a nod, her breathing ragged. Yes, I'm fine. Good. His attention returns to Luca. This is what happens next. You will divulge everything. Your employer, the destinations of the shipments, every name in your ledger. If I suspect a falsehood, the subsequent projectile will find a far more vital target. I am telling you nothing. Adrian cocks the hammer. An incorrect response. Wait! Luca's voice fractures. Wait, fine, I will cooperate. Just don't. The door is breached once more. 3 figures in full black tactical attire swarm the room, rifles raised. Arya's pulse simply ceases. Yet Adrian remains impassive, releasing a measured sigh. Your arrival was delayed. One of the operators lowers his firearm. Apologies, boss. The traffic was abysmal. Boss, Arya murmurs, observing as the armed unit converges on Luca, hoisting him up and applying restraints. He continues to bleed, his face ashen, all defiance extinguished. What is this? Luca asks faintly. Who are they? Adrian sheathes his pistol and pivots to Arya, his expression finally yielding its hardness. Private security. He clarifies. They are in my employ. You! The words lodge in her throat. This was your design, the entire sequence. As I stated, he responds. I have been architecting this for the past 3 days. Wait, the Volkovs that meeting? She attempted to clarify. I merely said I was meeting his representatives, not forging an alliance. But Adrian simply gestured to his operatives. Escort him to the holding area. I will attend to him personally. As they removed Luca, he directed a look of absolute venom at Arya. This is not concluded, Arya. Do you understand me? This is not... A sharp impact from a guard silenced him abruptly. The door slammed shut, ushering in a profound quiet. Arya was destabilized, trembling from the visceral display. Adrian drew her into an embrace, and she surrendered to it, her body racked with sobs. It is finished, he whispered. He is gone. He can no longer harm you. You shot him. I did. He could have perished. He could have. But I was aware you would not wish that upon your conscience. She withdrew, her gaze locking with his. How were you certain I would drop? I was not. I simply possessed faith. That is irrational. That is us. A wild, unburdened laugh breaks from Arya. Who are you really, Adrian? He cradles her face, his thumb stroking away a tear she hadn't registered. I am the individual who resolves complications but cannot abandon the people who matter. I matter more than you can possibly comprehend. He kisses her, a profound, weighted kiss, and she capitulates entirely to this fiercely protective figure who had just detonated his own world to ensure her safety. Parting, he rests his forehead against hers. Let us depart. We must relocate. Where are we headed? To a place where Luca's reach is non-existent. A place of absolute security. More secure than this stronghold? Far more. He guides her out to a waiting vehicle where Marcus stands. The older man's expression is stoic, but his eyes broadcast deep concern. Is the matter resolved, sir? It will be. Take us to the city residence. Yes, sir. The journey proceeds in complete silence, Arya resting against Adrian, his arm an anchor of stability. She should be fractured, a ruin of her former self, but instead she feels only a profound and peculiar serenity. What fate awaits him? She asks softly. Luca? He is about to engage in a very lengthy conversation. Following that, he will vanish. You intend to actually make him disappear? He is presented with a choice, cooperate and receive a new life in a remote location, or confront the syndicates he betrayed. Most individuals in his position choose to cooperate. And if he declines, Adrian's arm tightens around her, then he declines. But irrespective of his decision, he is permanently expunged from your life. Arya closes her eyes. I feel as though I should be burdened by guilt for this, but I am not. That is because you are finally perceiving him as he is, not as the man you wished him to be. And what is that? A coward who exploited you, sought to dominate you, and believed he could possess you. Adrian's voice lowers. You have greater worth than that. Do I? He looks down, his gaze intensely earnest. Yes, you do. They arrive at a different structure, a sleek, featureless tower in Manhattan's core. Adrian leads her past a doorman, who offers a curt nod, into an elevator requiring keycard access. The penthouse they enter is unlike his other property. This one feels warm, inhabited. Books line the shelves. A jacket is draped over a chair. A mug sits on the kitchen counter. This is your actual home, Arya observes. It is. Then why bring me to this place? The other location is for my business affairs. This is mine. I required you to be completely and utterly safe. Arya approaches the window, gazing out at the vast expanse of city lights. She can hear Adrian behind her, his voice on the phone, low and incisive, issuing directives, managing the fallout. After he disconnects, he joins her. For a moment, they stand in silence, observing the city's rhythm. What is the next step? Arya whispers. Now, you find some tranquility. Tomorrow, we determine your subsequent move. And after that, Adrian turns to her. After that, you reclaim your life. Your residence, your professional life, your autonomy, every single element of it. And you? Is it permissible for me to have you as well? A faint smile touches his lips. Do you desire to have me? I posed that question this morning. You never truly provided an answer. I stated that I was yours for the duration you wished. What if I wish for that duration to be an exceptionally long time? For an instant, Adrian's composure falters, revealing a flicker of pure vulnerability in his eyes. In that case, I suppose I am yours, for as long as you will have me. Arya reaches up, her hand cupping his jaw. That could be a profoundly long time, Adrian. Good. He kisses her, not with urgency, but with the quiet promise of two people in his private space, the crisis abated as something new and delicate begins to form. Afterward, Adrian guides her to a guest room. Obtain some rest, genuine rest. My room is just down the corridor. Adrian, yes, thank you for everything. He offers a slight nod. Always. He begins to depart, but Arya's hand darts out, catching his. Stay. Please do not leave me by myself. Adrian pauses, his gaze locking with hers. Arya, I cannot face this alone tonight. Please. He hesitates for a moment before acquiescing with a nod, removes his shoes, and lies down on the bed. Arya curls against him, her head resting on his chest as his arm enfolds her. You are safe now, he murmurs into her hair. I promise. And for the first time in what feels like an eternity, Arya accepts the truth of it. She awakens to morning light and the aroma of coffee. For a fleeting second, she is disoriented, unaware of her location or the preceding events. Then it returns in a torrent. Luca, the weapon, Adrian's cold, methodical fury. She sits up, every muscle protesting, and notes Adrian's side of the bed is vacant but retains warmth. She finds him in the kitchen, already attired in another flawless suit, a phone pressed to his ear. I have no concern for his conditions. He either cooperates fully or he receives nothing. Those are his only options. A brief silence. Excellent. Keep me informed. He terminates the call and notices her. His severe expression dissolves instantly. Good morning. Did you sleep? Better than I anticipated. Was that? Luca, he has elected to be cooperative. A knot forms in Arya's stomach. What is he providing you? Everything. Identities, shipping lanes, financial accounts. Sufficient information to incinerate his entire network. And him? What becomes of him after? Adrian pours her a mug of coffee. He is given a new identity and a new existence in a very distant place. He will simply be gone. He will simply be gone. Arya takes a sip, her mind grappling with the finality. It is truly concluded. It is truly concluded. She places the mug down, her hands unsteady. I don't know my next course of action. For 3 days, my existence has been about fleeing and concealing. Now, it is simply over. I don't know how to absorb that. Adrian comes around the counter, placing his hands on her shoulders. You approach it one day at a time, return to your apartment, to your work, you start anew. But what if I do not wish to return? Then do not. You can do anything you desire, Arya. That is the entire purpose. You are free. She meets his gaze. And what of you? What will you do? Me? A slight smirk appears. I will continue my usual activities, resolving problems, managing my world. And us? What do we become? He is silent for a moment, his gaze plumbing hers. What do you wish for us to become? Arya responds without hesitation. Something authentic. No more strategic moves, no more facades, simply us. Adrian's hands tighten on her shoulders. Then we are authentic. No parameters, no prerequisites, simply you and I. Do you mean that? I never articulate things I do not mean. An authentic smile, the first in days, illuminates Arya's face. Okay, then we are authentic. He draws her into an embrace, and Arya sinks into his strength, his security, and the staggering, wonderful reality that she entered a club 3 days ago, seeking retribution, and discovered something infinitely more precious. So what is the next step? She asks against his chest. Now, Adrian says, we construct our own normal together. I am fairly certain normal is not a word in your lexicon. Then we will invent our own definition. Arya leans back to look at him. I like the sound of that. Good, because you will not be getting rid of me. Is that a promise? Adrian's eyes become intense. A vow. His kiss was deliberate and deep, an act that sealed their pact. Arya understood that regardless of what followed, of the turmoil his world introduced to hers, they would confront it as a unified force. And perhaps that was the only thing of consequence. 3 weeks elapsed before Arya felt her own breath return to a normal rhythm. 3 weeks of awakening in Adrian's residence, of morning coffee amidst his conference calls, of absorbing the cadence of his life and her emerging role within it. She had returned to her apartment on the 4th day, with Marcus stationed outside as Adrian insisted. The entire space felt alien and constricting, a past existence she had unwittingly surpassed. She gathered only the essentials and departed permanently. Her clients posed no inquiries when she began operating from a new location. They sought her designs, which she provided, working late at Adrian's table while he managed his own domain from across the room. She refrained from prying, aware that a deeper look into his world would surely shatter her own. She was not yet prepared for that degree of upheaval. Then, 3.5 weeks after Luca's unceremonious exit, Adrian entered the kitchen and placed a thick manila envelope before her. "What is this?" she inquired, his reply, the conclusion. Arya's gaze shifted from the packet to him, requiring a more thorough explanation than his 2-word summary. Adrian simply poured coffee with practiced ease. He explained that Luca had been banished, dispatched to South America, with a fresh identity and substantial capital for a new beginning. The Volkovs had received everything they required: the evidence, the network, the complete apparatus to dismantle his organization. As for her, he gestured to the envelope. "You are now officially inviolable." Arya opened it, her hands unsteady. Inside lay a trove of legal instruments she could not fully comprehend, but their intent was unmistakable. Contracts of protection, total immunity, a paper trail that cast her as an unwitting pawn rather than a participant in the conflict. "How was this even accomplished?" she asked. He replied, "Through connections. I cashed in some favors." With that, Luca was erased from her life with no possibility of return. The Volkovs had seen to it. She had anticipated an overwhelming sense of liberation, which did arrive for the most part. But beneath it, a small, toxic seed of guilt began to grow. "Are you all right?" Adrian's tone was subdued. "I'm not sure," she confessed. "This is what I desired, isn't it?" Yet an entire person's life had just been dismantled on her behalf. "No, it was on his behalf," Adrian countered. "His decisions led him to this. You were merely the precipitating factor." The logic offered little comfort. He set down his cup and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Allow me to be candid. Men like Luca do not reform. They simply adopt more convincing disguises. If not you, it would have been another. His ruin was always inevitable. You did not destroy his life, Arya. You just forced the dawn." She longed to believe him, to release the heavy weight of it all, but the feeling remained, a cold stone lodged in her chest. Her eventual concession echoes through the silence. A need for professional counsel, a desire to map the chaos within her own mind. Adrian's response is characteristic, a swift, assured promise of a discreet solution. His access to a therapist is presented not as an anomaly, but as one node in a vast network of influence. When she observes this, a flicker of amusement breaks through her distress. He offers a gesture of comfort, a deliberate kiss to her forehead, a promise of security he has no right to make. She confronts this hubris, noting the fallacy of controlling the uncontrollable. He parries with his track record of success. Arya's gaze registers the central paradox of her situation. The architect of her world's destruction has become its sole sanctuary. But her own plea for his vulnerability shatters the moment. His immediate emotional retreat, the mask of indifference that descends, is a fortress she refuses to accept. She articulates the new terms of their engagement. Emotional parity is non-negotiable for their survival. A moment of strained silence hangs between them before he offers a minimal concession. The tightness in his jaw betrays a deeper conflict before a rough sigh escapes. He confesses to a state of profound uncertainty, a psyche fractured by 3 weeks of dismantling a criminal syndicate, negotiating with violent men, and enduring sleepless nights consumed by worry for her. His conclusion is stark. He is not okay, but views it as a temporary state. The admission strikes Arya with a sharp pang of empathy. Closing the distance, she places her hands on his chest, offering not a solution but her presence. He attempts to shield her, framing his world as a place she cannot inhabit. yet she counters by choosing him, and by extension, his reality. His hands frame her face, his touch a gentle caress as he insists this life is beneath her. She refutes this, claiming her choice with conviction. The kiss that follows is a slow, profound act of sealing a contract, a moment that solidifies not a fleeting passion but a permanent allegiance. They part, his forehead resting against hers in the quiet aftermath. A business imperative calls him to Chicago for several days, and he insists she accompany him. The city's name hangs in the air with unspoken weight. He describes the trip as a matter he must handle personally. Safe, a series of meetings, yet his core reason is her proximity. She asserts her own capability for self-preservation, which he acknowledges but dismisses with a plea to indulge him. Her assessment of his features, the hard set of his jaw, the stress etched around his eyes, reveals the truth. This is a consequence of Luca's actions, a power vacuum an old subordinate is trying to fill. He must suppress this ambition before it metastasizes. Her role in this, she questions. His reply is twofold. He entrusts her safety to no one else, and he selfishly refuses to endure a 3-day separation. A complex warmth blossoms in her chest at the admission. The question shifts from if to when. The answer, tomorrow morning. The journey north is shrouded in a profound quiet. Adrian is consumed by his laptop, his focus an impenetrable wall. Arya's novel lies forgotten, her mind a maelstrom of thoughts about Luca, the envelope, and a life now irrevocably alien. They arrived in the city at midday, proceeding directly to a hotel of staggering luxury, where a single night's stay exceeded her former weekly earnings. Adrian registered them under an alias before they ascended to a suite on the 40th floor. He instructed her to settle in, his attention already captured by his phone. His meeting was scheduled for 3, with an expected return around 6. Her request to join was met with a flat refusal. The reason was simple. These were not social engagements. Her frustration mounted as she contemplated hours of enforced idleness. He suggested a list of solitary diversions, sightseeing, shopping, room service, with the sole conditions of remaining in public spaces and being reachable by phone. As she began to protest, his tone shifted. A strained, almost pleading quality in his voice compelled her to relent. She agreed, but on the condition of full disclosure upon his return. He sealed the bargain with a quick, intense kiss and departed, leaving Arya alone in the cavernous suite, vibrating with a nervous energy that had no outlet. She moved through the metropolis like a phantom, tracing the river's path, her gaze falling on shop displays that showcased a life no longer hers. Only a month prior, her existence had a clear trajectory, anchored to a man she believed she understood. Now she was marooned in Chicago with an enigma, fleeing unnamed shadows, attempting to construct something authentic from a foundation of deceit. The concept should have been terrifying, and at times it was, but overwhelmingly it felt like a homecoming. She returned to the hotel at 5:30. The room service pasta sat untouched as she nursed a glass of wine that offered no solace. Adrian entered, looking not merely tired, but scoured to his very soul. Her quiet inquiry about his meeting was met with the weary posture of a soldier returning from an undeclared war. The situation, he stated, was handled. The vagueness was intentional. He poured a whiskey and consumed it with medicinal purpose. The associate, for now, had withdrawn. The qualification hung in the air. This momentary reprieve, he clarified, was but a pause in a war far from concluded. Arya set down her glass, demanding to know what he was withholding. He stared into his drink, lost in a long, heavy silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, revealing a far more complex battlefield. Luca, he explained, was never the ultimate authority. More powerful figures operate from the shadows, entities with greater reach and resources, and they are displeased with the recent turn of events. She asked the fundamental question: were they in danger? The immediate threat, he confirmed, had been neutralized, but the situation remained intricate. She rejected the evasion, demanding transparency. If this was their problem, she needed to understand the full scope of the opposition. His gaze met hers, stripped of all artifice. He laid out the truth. 3 separate syndicates coveted the contents of the drive. The Volkovs possessed a fragment, but the complete data was their only leverage. The reason she remained untouched was their knowledge that he held this power and his implicit threat to annihilate their world should they make a move. A cold fear coiled in Arya's veins. They were not safe, not even remotely. He countered that their current state was the only form of safety this world offered. A negotiated truce. And in this world, he was the master negotiator. The assurance offered no comfort. It was, he admitted, all he had to give. She rose, her hands trembling, questioning the very nature of their future. A life of constant vigilance, forever anticipating the next blow. For the time being, he confirmed yes. He stipulated the duration of this state of alert until every last threat had been neutralized from the board. The timeline he offered was terrifyingly vague. Months, perhaps longer. She turned from him, a tightness constricting her throat. The reality of it was insane, an untenable existence as a lifelong target. He swore it wouldn't be, that he would see this through to its conclusion. Another promise he couldn't guarantee. The words escaped her with a sharpness she hadn't intended, a verbal blade that made him flinch. The visible hurt in his eyes sparked immediate, twisting regret. She whispered an apology, confessing her profound disorientation, her lack of knowledge on how to exist in this new state without shattering. In 2 strides, he was before her, his drink abandoned. He told her she didn't have to accept it. She only had to trust him to be her shield. She affirmed her trust in him, but confessed the lack of trust in herself. He drew her into an embrace, his hand cradling her head, his breath a warm promise against her skin. They would navigate this together, one day at a time. Arya closed her eyes, surrendering to his warmth. An unspoken question hangs between them. What if this fractures us beyond repair? His silent answer is a vow. They will construct a new reality from the ruins. He will not lose her. Leaning back, she searches his face for confirmation. His sincerity is absolute. This commitment, he implies, is most critical precisely because of the chaos. In response, Arya kisses him, a fierce, desperate act designed to silence the world. For a single moment, the threats, the doubts, and the fear dissolve. There is only the 2 of them, an island of solidarity in a Chicago hotel suite as their world unravels. When they part, he gently brushes a strand of hair from her face and suggests an escape. Her request is simple: one night of normalcy. A genuine smile, a rare light in the encroaching darkness breaks across Adrian's face. Normalcy he can provide. He leads her to a small Italian restaurant on a hidden street, a place defined by checkered tablecloths and candlelight flickering in wine bottles, a space that is quiet, private, and blessedly ordinary. In this sanctuary, they press pause, using food and wine to build a firewall against their reality. The conversation is a deliberate retreat into the mundane. Arya recounts the saga of a difficult design client, while Adrian shares a tale of a near-disastrous culinary experiment. The normalcy is so potent it feels surreal. Arya admits she could grow accustomed to this, the quiet intimacy of their shared space. Adrian's expression softens entirely as he concurs. When she questions his seriousness, he reiterates a core principle. He only says what he means. It's a phrase she's heard before, and he explains its constant repetition is a testament to its constant truth. Later, as they walk along the river, his hand becomes her anchor in the darkness. She finally poses the question that has lingered beneath the surface. Why her? He could have disengaged, let her walk away. His silence is brief but thoughtful. The reason, he explains, was her perception of him. At the bar, she saw only a man, not a problem to be solved or a danger from which to flee. He was simply a man, and she had cherished the illusion, perceiving him as something other than his reality. And what is that? A possessive, dangerous individual, a man who solves problems through thoroughly corrupt methods. Esurt. He met her gaze directly. But you do not pass judgment on me. You are not fearful. You simply see me, and that is invaluable. A pang went through Arya's chest. You are not the monster you believe yourself to be. You have no concept of what I have done. Perhaps not, but I know the man you are with me, and that is sufficient. Adrian halted, turning to face her fully. I am not worthy of you. Likely not, but you have me nonetheless. He kissed her then, a slow, profound kiss that felt less like a descent and more like an arrival. They returned to New York 2 days later. The Chicago venture had been a success, Adrian informed her. The opposition had withdrawn. The danger was neutralized. For the time being, it was always, for the time being. But Arya was learning to exist in that liminal space, to understand that their world was constructed upon a foundation of pure chaos. Her security was a consequence of his world, not a feature. Their sense of normalcy was an ever-receding horizon. She took up residence in his apartment on a damp Thursday, with the last remnants of her Brooklyn life confined to a spare room she would never occupy. As Adrian unpacked for her, methodically folding garments and arranging novels, Arya observed him with an emotion that bordered precariously on love. You don't need to do that, she murmured. I can manage my things. I'm aware. I want to. Why? He met her gaze with stark sincerity. Because this time, you're staying, and I need this to feel like your home as well. A knot formed in her throat. Do you mean that? I only say what I mean. She let out a laugh fractured by unshed tears. You should find a new phrase. For what reason? This one is effective. They concluded their work, ordered a meal, and settled on the sofa, entwined before a film neither of them watched. And for the first time since that chaotic night, Arya could truly draw a full breath. 2 months following Luca's vanishing act, her phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. She nearly dismissed the call, but an instinct urged her to answer. Hello? A pause, then a voice utterly shattered. Arya. A chill permeated her veins. Luca. Don't disconnect, I beg you. She absolutely should have. She should have severed the connection and dialed Adrian, yet the profound brokenness in his tone held her captive. What is it you want? I needed to express my regret for all of it. I'm aware it alters nothing, but you deserve to hear it. Arya's hand gripped the phone tightly. You stalked me. You made threats. You attempted to force me from my home with a weapon, and you're now regretful. I was cornered and consumed by fear, and I committed monstrous acts, but my intention was never to harm you, Arya. I swear. But you did harm me. You manipulated me. I know, and I carry that with me. He drew a shaky breath. I am calling to inform you that you are free, entirely. I arranged a settlement with the Volkoffs, with Adrian, with everyone. I gave them everything they desired, and they in turn pledged to never involve you again. The oxygen seemed to evacuate Arya's lungs. Then why reveal this to me now? Because you are far too decent for what I am. You always were, and I hope you discover that. With him or another man. Just find your happy ending, Arya. That is my only wish. And the line went dead. Arya remained seated for a long while, staring at the device, attempting to absorb the exchange. Finally, she rose, marched to Adrian's office, and rapped on the door. Enter. She swung the door open. Adrian was immersed in documents and monitors, his focus absolute. His gaze snapped to hers as she came in. Are you all right? Luca contacted me. Adrian's entire demeanor became glacial. When? A few minutes ago, he called to apologize and to inform me he struck a deal to exit my life for good. He did he? 3 weeks ago. I chose not to mention it, assuming you had no need to hear his voice again. You knew he would call? I suspected it. He was required to obtain my consent first. Arya was stunned. Consent? It was stipulated in the agreement. He receives a new beginning, provided he adheres to the conditions, one of which was no contact without my authorization. No, in words. And you authorized it? I thought perhaps he required a final chapter, a definitive conclusion, not merely his disappearance leaving you in limbo. The constriction in Arya's throat intensified. You were right. I did need that. Adrian stood, crossed the space, and pulled her into an embrace. It is finished now, all of it. He is gone, the danger has passed, and you are safe. Truly 100% secure. And what about us? What are we now? Adrian drew back, framing her face with his hands. We are whatever you wish for us to be. Arya's reply was immediate. I want us to be a definite article, permanent. No conditions, no termination date, just us. Then that is what we are. He kissed her then, and in that single gesture, Arya felt the last vestiges of her former life disintegrate. The existence where she was a secondary figure, a piece in a larger conflict, a choice among many. This one was hers, forged in truth and peril and the irrational. Beautiful decision to remain when fleeing would have been the simpler path. 6 months later, Arya is in Adrian's kitchen, now their kitchen, preparing coffee while he is on a call. She is securing more significant clients, reestablishing her professional identity, and producing art that genuinely excites her. Adrian had already withdrawn from his more perilous enterprises, redirecting his focus to legitimate ventures that did not require clandestine dealings. It was no fairy tale. They still navigated difficult dialogues, moments where his world collided with hers with jarring force. But they fought to make it function because the choice was theirs, each and every day. When Adrian entered, he encircled her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Morning? Good morning. She pivoted within his hold to face him. What was that call about? Nothing significant, just finalizing the last details of the whole Vance Industries affair. Is it truly over? It is truly over. Arya beamed, the burden of the past year finally dissipating. So, what is our next move? A slow smirk formed on Adrian's lips. Whatever we desire, we could travel the globe, forge a new empire, or simply remain here and share coffee every morning. It makes no difference as long as you are with me. That's a considerable promise. I know. Are you certain you're prepared for that? Adrian kissed her, a deliberate and profound kiss. I've been prepared since the night you commanded me to kiss you. Every moment since has been an attempt to catch up to that instance. A laugh escaped Arya, sounding clear and completely unrestrained. Then I suppose this is what we are doing. This is what we are doing. As the morning sun poured in, illuminating the room in a golden hue, the realization finally settled upon Arya. She had spent so much of her life contorting herself to fit another's expectations, striving to be their ideal, that she had forgotten how to simply exist. But here, with Adrian, she was not required to be anything other than herself. Imperfect, complex, and still navigating her path, and he was fully committed, not merely tolerating her turbulence, but cherishing her because of it. That 10-second kiss in a crowded, noisy club had irrevocably altered the course of her life. It closed one chapter and began an entirely new volume. And while the path forward was uncharted, while there would be trials and conflicts and instances where she would doubt everything, Arya knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was exactly where she was meant to be, with the man who had sworn to be her shield and held that oath as sacred, with the life she had meticulously constructed herself, not one she had stumbled into, with the future that was hers to command. And that, she mused, as Adrian drew her nearer and kissed her once more, was far greater than just sufficient. It was her absolute everything,